Okay, I guess you're ready to go. Welcome everyone to today's Elsevier webinar, in which me, Philip, and my colleague Helen will talk to you about academic staff evaluation. What's the purpose, what are challenges, and what can be solutions to come to more efficiency here? Just let me enlarge the screen a bit. So today's agenda, we will discuss why research needs management, how to manage research leveraging what I call a balanced regulatory circle, why managing research means to manage researchers, if there should be more to researcher management than just a stick and carrot that we have for such a long time, why clean processes and accurate data are so important in any case, what are common issues regarding academic staff evaluation and management, what's the cost of the problems that we still see happening in reality, to then wrap it up with what academia needs to manage research and researchers properly and why digital transformation is key. Slides, there we go. So that's a no-brainer question, right? Does research need management? I guess we all agree on that. It's one of the three main areas of business that institutions in higher education and research have, besides HR and finance and higher education, of course. So research needs management. Common goals in research management over the past couple of years have been, for example, to further develop your scientific profile, right, in competition with other institutions. You may strive to increase quality and impact of your research. Very popular goal is to rise in rankings, to increase visibility, foster collaborations, acquire more third-party funding, foster tech transfer and innovation, or increase, and that's a hot topic nowadays, the societal impact, right, of your research. But in addition to all these challenges that have been around for quite some time, what we recently see are geopolitical shifts and disruptions, declining public budgets, inflation, general cost increases, increasing competition for research grants. I don't have to read it all out to you. So on top of what has always been around, we recently have seen additional challenges that we are facing, or you probably may be facing. So how to deal with that, how to react to that, how to take action in an appropriate way. I used to say that research management is like gardening, right? You plow the soil, you put in the seeds, you watch the plants grow, then you cut them from time to time, and you water them, you fertilize them. So it's a bit like gardening. And the approach to do that is what I call the regulatory circle, and this is a very established, proven to work concept that is basically a regular exercise of checks and balances, depicted here on that slide. And it always begins with finding out where you are, right? Where you stand. Then you identify problems, you agree on strategic goals. Where do I want to be in a certain, in a few years from now? You then break down your strategic goals into SMART success criteria, so specific, right, measurable, achievable. You know all of that, and you take action. You measure your performance. You need data for that again. You make management decisions, maybe decide on some adjustments before you find out where you stand again. while this, so in this graph, the institution is in the center or is in scope. Talking about an institution's performance, what is it that we actually are talking about? I guess we all agree that it is the researchers, right, that row your boat. Some call it faculty. We call it academic staff. So let's consider these three terms to be synonyms for now. And it's them, right, rowing the boat, rowing your boat. So to manage an institution's performance actually means to manage researcher performance. That sounds like a no-brainer, but it can change your perspective on things just a little bit, but in a pretty significant way. We have seen a lot of researcher performance evaluation metrics over time. We had quantitative metrics. We had and still have qualitative metrics. We have regional metrics, like think about the SEP exercise in the Netherlands or the REF in the UK. We see more and more innovative metrics like the Koara framework that you probably have heard about. Elsevier also is developing new metrics like the impact AI tool that we're building that can measure the societal impact of your research in 7 dimensions. Please make contact if you should be interested in that. I have to click here. Okay. So we have seen a lot of metrics, but all of these are more or less output focused, right? So looking at the results of research. Given that we agree that we want everyone to deliver peak performance, right? Your researchers to deliver peak performance. I always have wondered if we really achieve that with stick and carrot approach, looking at output only and reward people if they overachieve and punish them if they underachieve. In my opinion, peak performance also requires support, right? Input in various ways. That's the holistic approach that we mentioned in the abstract for this webinar. So support, I'm convinced, can be even more powerful than pressure, because what is it that researchers need to deliver the best performance, and what is it that they expect, right, from you as an employer? So going around the circle, it would be excellent resources, right? Lab time, staffing, whatever it is. Access to information, that is typically what the library provides, right? Journals, data, competitive compensation, time, trust, and freedom, very important. And then last but not least, support to pursue their career. And that's highly appreciated, and we see increasing attention on this. What people really appreciate, what employers appreciate anywhere, right, not just in universities, is services and tools to document their achievements, showcase the results of their work, and most of all, services and consulting helping them to strengthen their strengths, right? Developing as a researcher, as a person, maybe even, and develop their career, right, in the best possible way, preparing for the next step. These are just forms of input that have proven to boost performance. What happened now? Okay, back to my slide. Okay, sorry for that. Hope you can still see my slides. So what we actually are talking about is to attract and develop talent. And that is considered one of the major challenges nowadays by academic leaders. In 2024, we have created and published a study called View from the Top. So we asked academic leaders all around the globe what would be the most pressing challenges that they are facing, in their opinion, but for which they feel prepared for the least. And, on that slide here, you can see that retaining talent, attracting talent, providing competitive compensation, ensuring compliance is among these pressing challenges. So, no matter if you assess someone's performance in an output-oriented approach, or you try to support someone, right, to deliver peak performance, what you need in any case is accurate data on the researcher's activities and achievements. However, this data is often cumbersome together, and Helen will talk a bit more about that, and it can be time-consuming to share it with others, right, in the process. Let me just give you an example of an insufficient practice or process and what the costs and damages done are. So, and we often come across this in practice. I wouldn't say it's exaggerated, right? Sometimes you still find something like this actually happening. So, given that, assume that there's an evaluation or consulting process. Typically, it's kicked off by the VP of Research or the Dean to convene a committee that is supposed to evaluate or support or consult someone. Now, the head of committee now has the task to unroll a process like this, right? So what he or his colleagues will have to do is to gather information about the candidate, share information with the committee members, collect the committee's feedback, complete the task, and then in the end document and archive the case. So challenge number one is where to find reliable data, right, on the candidate's performance and achievements. Often still, this would be delivered by email, right, by the candidates themselves or someone doing that work for them. Often there's some attachments to that email, PDFs, like a publication list or a CV. Challenge number two is how to share these performance records with the committee members, right, so they can read, compare, rate and rank and discuss that. Still, a popular solution for that is, again, sending out, sharing that by email, or putting stuff on a SharePoint or some other sort of shared drive, right, where committee members can access that. Challenge number three is, the next challenge is how to collect and consolidate the committee members' opinions and feedback to enable a meaningful discussion. Again, it's emails oftentimes, Excel sheets maybe to summarize and consolidate data in meeting minutes to allow an exchange of data and information in the committee. Last step, or last challenge, is how to document and archive the whole thing. And that's a problem again, because often you see information scattered, across the board. You have an Excel sheet, you have some rankings and email communications and meeting minutes. So a suboptimal situation here. So what's the impact of that, or the damage done, the costs, let me call it like this. So first of all, you have inefficiencies, right, across the board, collecting information, sharing information, archiving the whole thing. You will cause frustrations on the researcher side. because they have to gather and assemble information about themselves all the time, again and again, in PDFs and Word documents and whatnot. The sharing of data will be frustrating for the committee, so frustrations on the committee side. You might have decisions about promotion and other things that might be based on incomplete or misleading data, while in general there's a lack of transparency and potentially of compliance across the board and along the whole process. Now, at this point, let me hand it over to my colleague Helen, who will have a closer look at the parties, right, the stakeholders involved in these kind of processes.
Thank you. Thanks, Philip.
To then talk about a solution to all of this.
A hopeful solution, but that we certainly believe in. Thanks, Philip. And thank you, everybody, for attending today's webinar. My name is Helen. I have spent the last few years talking to institutions about this exact use case and some of the challenges there together with Philip. So the information we share today certainly comes from people within the academic community, such as yourself. Now, if I just click through, Philip already went into the view from the top report, which was based on information gathered in 2023. And we asked a question to all of these senior leaders. And the question was quite simple. Is there a challenge that you think will become a much greater challenge within the next 5 years? And the results you can see on the pictogram on the right. And highlighting here is human capital or talent management and research, showing that these two areas are considered two areas that the import will increase within the short to medium term, and institutions and its leaders don't necessarily feel that they're that well equipped to deal with those challenges. And I think a lot of that comes down to data, of course, as Philip had alluded to, but also the way we burden the people involved. Now, from a very high level, if we just zoom out and we see academic leaders who need this information, we see administrative teams. These are the people that gather all the data and answer all of the important questions for academic leaders, but also for academics. Now, the way this information gathering happens, Philip already told you, tends to be inefficient. And the group that suffers the most from this, and I get this from all universities that I speak to, are the academic. The academic staff members are the ones who are expected to do more research, to grow the institution, to row that boat even faster. But at the same time, the administrative burden on them is increasing as we try to grasp the direction that the institution is growing into. So in terms of enterprise software, because that's what I want to talk about, is as part of digital transformation, going from this paper trail, these inefficient processes, to software designed specifically to manage these challenges. You need software that targets the sweet spot between these three groups, so that depending on the role you have, you see only the information you're required to see. Efficiency. It has to be configurable to higher education institution needs. There has to be transparency. There has to be evidence to show all the data gathered was done so in a proper fashion and backs up the eventual decision making. There has to be the ability to proactively manage, continuous workflows. This type of data gathering and evaluation exercises are often seen as spots in time, but to make it really, truly valuable is to keep that process going continuously so that academics, academic leaders, and administrative teams are on top of their game. Candidates who are going through these processes should know what they have to do and when. There has to be clarity. And the university should be able to discover trends in their processes online by means of reports or otherwise. So let's talk about this academic. We hear across the board that this is a concern, not just in terms of managing the talent pool, but also the pressure that this puts on academic staff. Academic staff do perform research, they teach, and there is, of course, the service component of their job aspects as well. So if we tally this all up, it's very easy to say that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. But proving that an academic is worth more than the sum of his or her parts places an inevitable burden on the said academic. And you can see the academic in my animation here working late at night, trying to comply to all the administrative needs that are out there. This is cumbersome, and we don't see this improving over time with the current methodologies. So I would like to introduce Interfolio, which is an enterprise software solution, as a possible solution for these challenges. Now, whenever you look at any software solution, there are certain must-haves, and this list can be long. But just for the purpose of the presentation, the data model has to be flexible because snowflakes never look alike. So we have to be able to configure that to a specific institution's needs. This ensures relevance for the academic and the leaders using the system. There has to be integration. What we don't want, and what is often happening now, is repeat data entry processes from an academic, but also for admin staff, having to basically reinvent the wheel every time. Integration talks about integration with third-party software solutions, other institutional solutions, but also other Elsevier solutions. We do take our role here very seriously. We have a lot of data, and to put that at your disposal to be more efficient. And of course, validation. We have to be able to have academics sign off on these processes. So let's talk about a flexible data model. Oh, animation all went in one go. So on the top right, you see a list of possible activities. Any academic staff member consists of who this person is, where they sit within the institution, and then, of course, everything they've done. That can be teaching, course evaluations, scholarly contributions, creative productions, grants, mentoring, etc. Basically, research, teaching, services. That data can be gathered from other systems where this data is maintained, but also when looking especially at scholarly contributions, which are essentially research outputs, if they already exist in Scopus, we should be able to ingest those. For those of you that have Pure as your current research information system, what you don't want is researchers having gone through the process of adding their research there, and then as an academic staff member saying, do I have to add it again? So that integration is one that that we take very seriously and can work. If I click through. So what is the benefits? If we're going to go through all of this data gathering, so who they are, what they've done over time, we have to be able to use that data. And one way we can use that data is if all of us are in that same system to have listed reports. Now, within Interfolio, we have what we call canned reports, but we also have ad hoc reporting, so that from a senior leadership or administrative review point of view, you can report on progress, you can report on the numbers going through the system, and even in terms of specific reports that you desire, we ask you during implementation, what is the data that you deemed most important to take your academics through this process. Of course, if you have a business faculty or are a business school, if we're gathering all this data, there is significant overlap with the requirements for certain accreditations. For example, the AACSB, where we are able to populate 3.1, 3.2, and 8.1, which for those of you in the know are very labor-intensive parts of the AACSB accreditation. That data and other data can also be stored within this flexible data model. And then, of course, if you have all of this data, if we know who your academic staff members are, and we know what they teach, we know what their research focus areas are, and we know what other service components they have, to be able to showcase that. Now, for those of you that have Pure, you will recognize this as what is known as the Pure portal. In Interfolio, we talk about web profiles, and what's important to know that with the combination of two, you are now able to showcase not just research, but also teaching and service components for each and every academic staff member. But if we're gathering this data, because those were just a few examples of what you can do with this information, we also have to look at ongoing checks and balances. It can't just be a data gathering exercise every now and again. Everybody goes into a panic, data is gathered. We have to have a process in place where all of these various groups know when the work is coming, what is expected of them, and to be able to be stored in a single place. Right now, we can see on the screen, we have the academic staff member overburdened, the system administrators, the heads of schools, we have HR as a stakeholder, we have senior management keenly waiting for all these reviews to go through the funnel, and of course the committees that do the final assessment. Philip already alluded to this in his slides. This is often handled via email, Excel, a OneDrive or a SharePoint or anything along those lines. These systems don't necessarily, these software solutions don't necessarily speak to each other. This process is inefficient. It is unclear. There is a huge risk of data loss, and the burden of proof is complex should anybody contest a decision. So all for one and one for all, an integrated solution where all stakeholders get access based on what they see. So they all access the same system and have tasks that they perform. It has to be configurable to suit your needs. It's important to know that this does not replace your HR system. It is complementary to an HR system and is configurable for each and every department, faculty, research group to ensure that type of consistency. So where they are alike, but where they differ, where there is nuance, those nuances can be accounted for. All data and communication is stored in a single place. And it goes beyond just academic promotions or annual reviews. They can include many more types of processes, such as the ones listed on the screen here, and include things like academic appointment, review processes, tenure processes, and anything else that you may need. What the point is, an academic staff member is going through a process where information has to be submitted. So on the left of the screen, you have the admin, the system administrator, the teams that manage these processes for you. They should be able to define what an academic staff member should submit. They should be able to create forms directly in the system, attach files, create questions, include instructions that you don't need to go through a separate page online to determine what it is you need to add. This has to be configurable now to account for our daily changes, but also configurable over time as these processes evolve. And the academic staff member on the right will simply receive an invite that a process, a workflow is about to be triggered, and they can submit when ready. Now, what can they submit? They can submit curriculum vitae, data that is already in place in the system, such as where we gathered all that data about research, teaching, and services, can be automatically ingested here. On the screen, you see an example of the type of instructions and questions that an academic staff member will be required to submit. And when that is all said and done, there are other people in this process, because you saw the diagram. It's not just the academic and the system admins. Other additional information can be added as well, but the academic staff member may not be required for this. So this is where a different group of users looks at the same software and can, for example, send off external evaluations or request letters of departmental recommendations. Now, in particular, requesting external evaluations is handled directly in the system, where emails can be sent to numerous external evaluators, and they will be asked whether they accept or reject the ability to be a part of this external evaluation. And should they accept, they will be requested to submit information before a due date. And you can even determine who has access in this backend system of Interfolio to the data that is presented by these external reviewers. Can we trigger a workflow that is specific to this type of promotion or annual review? Yes. Each and every workflow that you create in Interfolio can have its own what we call case review steps. In the example on the screen, you can see it first goes to the departmental chair, then it goes through to a departmental committee, then through to the academic promotions committee, and eventually ends up by the vice provost. And so all these people in the process can review all of the documentation submitted, create comments, and their decisions will be stored within this archive. This is configurable per template in the system and is extremely granular in its access capabilities if needed. It can also be a very simple process. It is highly configurable in that way. When all of this is said and done, the system administrators who manage these processes no longer need to keep SharePoints or OneDrives. They are able to access the data and determine exactly who has gone through the process, how many people have gone through the process, where are they in their processes, and so forth. You can also see results of evaluations, which can, of course, be used if required, if somebody contests the decision, etc. All that data is stored in a single system. At this stage, I will hand back over to Philip, and who will handle the final few minutes. Philip.
Yes, thank you so much. So, to wrap it up, as we mentioned several times, managing research means managing researchers, and of course we want every academic, every faculty member, every researcher to deliver peak performance. What is important for peak performance, not just looking at the output, right, but also looking at the input, support your people, amongst other things, by attracting and developing top talent, then to row your boat, to come back on the boat comparison. But no matter if it's performance assessment or career consulting, what you need is a powerful and flexible software tool that allows you to collect and share accurate data, right, on your researchers' activities and achievements in an efficient way inside your organization. And this way you will avoid all the cost and damage that we touched upon a few minutes ago. So the inefficiencies, the frustrations on the researcher side, on the committee side, the lack of transparency, and decisions potentially based on incomplete and misleading data. And instead of that, achieve efficient and digital processes. You will relieve the researchers of the documentation work and allow them to spend more time on research, because that's what they're actually supposed to do. You will relieve your committees and everyone involved of efforts and inefficiencies in context of collecting and sharing information internally. You will be unable to make decisions that are based on accurate data, and you will achieve full transparency and compliance. And that was actually the wrap-up. So thanks so much for your attention so far. And I assume that we will now be answering questions, if there are any, in the Q&A.
Please feel free to post your questions in the online Q&A.
I don't see any questions so far.
I've added a link to the view from the top report in the chat. The presentation we presented is available in the handout section at the top right. And we would urge you, if you have any questions about the information presented today or about Interfolio as a possible digital transformation solution for academic staff evaluation, to please contact us at any time. We welcome any questions you may have.
I guess we'll send out an email to each and every one of you anyways. with some contact details. So we're looking forward to discuss all of this with you, specific to your case and your needs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so since I don't see any questions.
No, I just see that Alex has posted you will receive the recording in an email in the coming days if you wish to look at it again.
Okay.
And therein you will also receive our contact information if you have any questions. So I think with that, and please don't forget to answer the polls that are available in the polls section. And with that, we thank you very kindly for your attendance and hope that the story we shared today resonated with you and your institution.
Thank you. Have a great week.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.